Beneath 2 miles of frozen silence, there may lie something that could shatter everything we think we know about human history. Antarctica, the most isolated, forbidden continent on Earth, is not just a wasteland of ice. Radar scans reveal mountains shaped like pyramids, maps drawn centuries ago that seem to show its coasts without ice, and crimson rivers that bleed from glaciers as if the land itself were alive. Why are vast regions of this continent off-limits, guarded by treaties and secrecy? And what would we uncover if the ice were to melt? The ruins of a lost civilization, the true cradle of humanity, or even evidence of something not of this world? Tonight we descend into the frozen vault where myth and science blur, tracing the shadows of secrets that have lingered for millennia, waiting for the ice to break. If mysteries like this captivate you, consider subscribing so you won't miss the next journey. And tell us in the comments, what do you believe lies beneath Antarctica's eternal ice? Picture yourself standing on the rim of a continent that few will ever see in their lifetime. Before you stretches a horizon without colour, only endless white broken by jagged peaks of black rock that rise like the backs of buried giants. The air is sharp enough to sting your lungs, and the wind moans across the ice as though it carries voices from another time. This is Antarctica, twice the size of Australia, larger than all of Europe, and holding within its glaciers 90% of Earth's fresh water. It is more than a wasteland. It is a vault sealed by ice, a library of memory written not on pages, but in frozen layers that stretch back millions of years. And if we were to believe the whispers of explorers, maps and myths, this frozen library may not simply preserve the history of ice ages and climate. It may hold the true history of Earth itself. Science confirms that beneath Antarctica's crushing ice sheets lie entire landscapes frozen in time. Fossilized forests discovered near the Beardmore Glacier tell us that this continent was once green. Leaves from beech-like trees and pollen from flowering plants are still there, compressed into stone, proof that Antarctica once basked in a temperate climate. Imagine it: rivers winding through valleys, dinosaurs roaming under polar skies that never fully darkened, wetlands alive with dragonflies and amphibians. This land was once a cradle of life, long before it became the graveyard of silence we know today. What does it mean that Antarctica has worn so many faces? If the land beneath the ice could host forests, could it not also have hosted civilizations? The fossils say that the continent was habitable, and in every human culture we know, wherever the land was fertile, people appeared. Yet here we are told no human foot ever left its mark until the modern age. Still, questions linger like shadows on the snow. Why do maps drawn centuries ago seem to show this continent free of ice? And how did those cartographers know what they should not have known? Geologists drill deep into the ice and retrieve slender cylinders, ice cores, each layer recording the world as it was when that snow first fell. They read them like books: ash from ancient volcanoes, bubbles of atmosphere from times before humans existed, even the ghost of supernova radiation from distant stars. Antarctica is a time machine, preserving evidence from eras long erased elsewhere. The paradox is this: the continent is both the newest and the oldest, untouched by humans, but holding secrets that may rewrite what it means to be human. And so the thesis unfolds. If Earth's true story, its missing chapters, its erased legacies, are hidden anywhere, they are hidden here. Because Antarctica does not simply conceal, it preserves. Ice is the great archivist. It presses everything beneath its weight and seals it from decay, keeping the forgotten alive in silence. If there were ruins, if there were artifacts, if there were entire civilizations swallowed by cataclysm, here is where they would endure, waiting for the glaciers to retreat. This is why nations guard it with treaties, and why exploration remains so limited. Even in an age of satellites, vast stretches of Antarctica remain blank on the map. And in those blank spaces, imagination takes root. We hear stories of pyramids poking from the ice, of hidden cities glimpsed in radar scans, of forests frozen mid-breath. Some dismiss these as tricks of geology or errors of interpretation. Others whisper that they are remnants of a forgotten epoch, one erased deliberately or buried by nature herself. But every mystery must begin with the ground itself. To understand Antarctica as the keeper of Earth's true history, we must first understand the strangeness of its presence on the oldest maps we possess. Maps that charted the world before explorers even knew this continent existed. Maps that show its coastlines drawn with uncanny precision. How could this be? Did a civilization long before us map the Earth when Antarctica was green and habitable? As we linger on the edge of this vault of ice, the silence is heavy, but it is not empty. It speaks of memory, of a world folded beneath miles of frozen water, waiting to be read like a book sealed in crystal. And the first page of that book is not found in ice, but on parchment, drawn in ink more than 500 years ago. Unfurl an ancient chart across a wooden table. Its edges are worn, the parchment cracked, and yet the lines it carries whisper of coastlines no sailor of its age should have known. The year is 1513. An Ottoman admiral, Piri Reis, compiles a map that will later confound historians. On its surface, South America is drawn with startling accuracy for the time. Rivers winding, mountains sketched where they should be. But it is the southern edge that draws the eye. There, beneath the known world, lies a landmass resembling Antarctica, and not just Antarctica as we see it now, cloaked in ice and silence, but Antarctica as it might have appeared millions of years ago, its coasts free, detailed, alive. For centuries, cartographers dreamed of a terra australis incognita, an imagined continent to balance the world. But the Piri Reis Map is different. When Charles Hapgood examined it in the mid-20th century, he argued it could not be the product of guesswork. Its contours aligned too closely with modern seismic surveys of Antarctica's true coastlines beneath the ice. Hapgood proposed something radical, that Piri Reis had drawn from far older sources, fragments of charts preserved from a civilization capable of global navigation thousands of years before history begins. Albert Einstein himself wrote a preface to Hapgood's work, noting that while controversial, the theory deserved attention. The idea is staggering. If such a civilization existed, where are its ruins, its records, its tools? Perhaps they lie buried in the one place that keeps its dead intact, beneath Antarctica's ice. The cartographers of the Renaissance admitted they copied from earlier maps, some said to have come from the Library of Alexandria before its destruction. Could knowledge of an ice-free Antarctica have slipped through the centuries, like a forgotten inheritance, encoded in parchment and passed hand to hand, long after the civilization that first charted it was gone? The Piri Reis Map is not alone. The Orontius Phineas Map of 1531 also depicts a southern landmass with rivers and mountain ranges strikingly similar to what we now know exists beneath Antarctica's frozen crust. The Mercator maps of the 1560s echo the same uncanny familiarity, suggesting not one but several sources drawn from an older well of knowledge. In each case, details surface that explorers of their age could not have verified. Bays that match seismic profiles, mountains that align with subglacial ridges, rivers flowing where radar now confirms ancient channels. Skeptics argue that these features are coincidences, the product of guesswork stitched together with imagination. But coincidence upon coincidence begins to weigh like evidence. If these maps truly echo an earlier time, then we face a disquieting thought. Someone mapped Antarctica when it was free of ice. That would place human seafaring knowledge not thousands, but tens of thousands of years before recorded history, perhaps even further back, into epochs we believe were populated only by hunter-gatherers. The question then sharpens: who were these map makers? Survivors of Atlantis, as some suggest? Migrants from a forgotten continent now lost beneath the waves? Or were they simply humans like us, but part of a cycle of civilizations rising and falling, each reset by catastrophe? Whatever the case, these maps are like fingerprints left by vanished hands. This is how Antarctica begins to hold the true history of Earth, not in the fossil record alone, but in fragments of memory that surface where we least expect them, in Ottoman archives, in European libraries, in charts drawn by men who admitted they did not understand the full meaning of what they copied. The ice may preserve the land, but the maps preserve the knowledge. Together they form a dialogue across centuries, one frozen in glaciers, the other in parchment. When you look again at the Piri Reis Map, imagine it not as a curiosity, but as a window. Picture the coastline drawn with confidence, the pen moving as if guided by memory of a land alive with rivers and green valleys. Did that cartographer know what he was sketching? Or was he merely preserving a ghost image, a copy of a copy, from a time when the world was very different? As night settles across our exploration of ancient maps, another shadow waits on the horizon, a shape too symmetrical, too deliberate to ignore. If the map suggests knowledge of Antarctica before the ice, then perhaps the land itself holds monuments from that forgotten time. And in the heart of the Ellsworth Mountains, a pyramid-shaped peak rises from the snow, a riddle carved against the sky. The plane drifts across an ocean of white, its engines humming against the silence of Antarctica. Below, the land stretches unbroken until something interrupts the pattern, a shadow too sharp, too symmetrical to belong to mere chance. Rising from the Ellsworth Mountains, a structure pierces the sky. 4 faces converge to a point, each edge clean, each slope aligned with uncanny precision. From above it looks less like a mountain and more like a monument, a pyramid in a land where no civilization is said to have lived. This anomaly first caught the world's attention in 2016, when satellite imagery revealed its form. Standing nearly 4,950 feet tall, the peak mirrors the geometry of Giza's Great Pyramid, yet it stands not on desert sands, but on a frozen continent locked away by ice. Geologists classify it as a nunatak, a mountain peak that juts through the ice sheet, sculpted by millions of years of wind and freeze-thaw cycles. They argue its sharpness is a natural result of erosion, comparable to the Matterhorn in the Swiss Alps. But skepticism falters when confronted with its symmetry. Most nunataks are rugged, fractured, chaotic. This one presents 4 near-identical triangular faces. How does nature craft geometry so exact, so architectural? And why does this pyramid appear aligned, its edges pointing in cardinal directions like its Egyptian cousins? The debate has become a mirror of belief. For some, a coincidence of geology. For others, the remnant of a civilization long erased. Across the world, pyramids share a strange universality. In Egypt, in Mesoamerica, in China, in Bosnia, great structures rise with bases wide, sides sloping, and summits reaching toward the heavens. Cultures separated by oceans and millennia, all built the same form. Some argue the pyramid is simply a stable shape, the inevitable choice for any monument. Yet others suggest it reflects a shared inheritance, a memory of a forgotten source civilization whose knowledge spread across the earth. Could Antarctica's icy pyramid be part of that same story? A sibling to Giza and Teotihuacan, built in an age when this land was not buried in snow? Satellite surveys add fuel to the fire. Beyond the single pyramid-like peak, faint outlines of other symmetrical forms appear, half buried in snow. Grids, ridges, possible square bases. The idea emerges, not an isolated mountain but the trace of a complex, a city entombed beneath miles of ice. Geological scans remain inconclusive, clouded by the sheer depth of the glacier. Yet even shadows can ignite speculation. If the pyramid is artificial, who built it and when? Geological evidence tells us Antarctica was temperate until about 12 million years ago, with forests and lakes flourishing. Human history as we know it is far younger. Could another form of intelligence have thrived here before us? Or could the land have supported a branch of humanity erased by cataclysm? Some even whisper of visitors from beyond, extraterrestrial architects who marked the Earth with pyramids as beacons, Antarctica's structure standing as one more in a global network. Skeptics counter with firm logic. Erosion, not intelligence, shaped the Ellsworth Peak. The human eye is drawn to symmetry, finding patterns where none exist, and yet doubt remains. If the pyramid were simply rock, why does it resonate so strongly with the world's oldest architectural form? Why do we feel, gazing at it, that it was meant to be seen? Perhaps the truth lies somewhere between. The mountain may indeed be natural, but its form may have inspired myths that echo across time. The ancients who first glimpsed Antarctica, whoever they were, may have seen this pyramid and remembered it, encoding its likeness into the monuments of warmer lands. If so, then the pyramid of ice is not merely stone, but memory itself, frozen into the landscape. And so Antarctica deepens its role as the keeper of Earth's true history. Whether natural or artificial, the pyramid challenges the narrative that this continent was always barren. It suggests eyes once looked upon it, hands once measured it, stories once grew around it. And in that suggestion lies a question we cannot dismiss. What else hides beneath the glaciers, waiting to rise? As the plain circles and the pyramid shrinks into shadow, the story does not end. It points us forward, deeper into Antarctica's enigmas. For if monuments may linger beneath the ice, what of those who sought them? In the mid-20th century, a fleet of ships and planes set course for the frozen south. Their mission was cloaked in secrecy, their return shrouded in rumour. The world would come to know it as Operation Highjump. The year was 1946, and the world was fragile, like a cracked mirror just beginning to hold its shape again. Cities still smouldered from bombings, families mourned across continents, and new lines of power were being drawn in the sand. The Cold War had not yet frozen, but its chill was in the air. In this climate of exhaustion and suspicion, the United States organized an expedition of staggering proportions to the southernmost edge of the world. It was not a quiet scientific voyage with a handful of researchers, it was a fleet. 13 ships including aircraft carriers, destroyers, tankers and supply vessels, over 4,700 men, dozens of aircraft, from lumbering transport planes to sleek fighter escorts, all converging on a continent that had no people, no cities, no armies. Why Antarctica? Why then? Why so soon after the devastation of war, when the world's resources were scarce and its governments weary? Officially, the mission's name was Operation Highjump. Its purpose? To test equipment in extreme cold, to train personnel for polar warfare, and to conduct aerial mapping of uncharted territory. But the scale was disproportionate, and the questions it left behind echo louder than the official explanations ever did. The fleet was divided into 3 groups, each tasked with sweeping arcs of exploration: eastern, western, and central. Their aircraft flew long sorties over ice that no human had ever seen, photographing glaciers and mountains across more than 1.5 million square miles. Bases were established, supply chains laid down, and fuel depots hidden under snow. Admiral Richard E. Byrd, the veteran explorer who had already made his name in earlier polar expeditions, was the public face of the mission. To the world, Byrd was the hero of the ice, a man who had flown further south than any before him. But to those who studied his words later, he became something else, a messenger whose warnings hinted at secrets far beyond science. In his public reports, Byrd was careful, precise. Yet at times his language slipped. In a 1947 interview given in Chile after the expedition ended, he cautioned that the United States must prepare to defend against the possibility of attacks coming from over the polar regions. His words sounded military, not scientific. What threat could come from Antarctica? Some interpreted it as Cold War rhetoric, aimed at reminding the public that the poles were vulnerable to long-range bombers. But others heard something else, a coded admission that Byrd had seen things in Antarctica the world was not ready to know. The alleged secret diary of Admiral Byrd deepened the mystery. First surfacing decades later, it describes an extraordinary experience. While flying over the Antarctic interior, Byrd reported his instruments failing, his radio crackling into static. He claimed his plane was seized by an invisible force and guided into a hidden valley of warmth and light where forests grew where ice should have been. He wrote of a subterranean city called Agartha, inhabited by tall beings with luminous eyes who spoke of ancient knowledge and warned humanity of its destructive path. Most historians dismiss the diary as a fabrication, an invention crafted to feed the rising tide of UFO fascination in the post-war years. The document has no official corroboration, and Byrd himself never spoke of such an encounter publicly. And yet the imagery is vivid, haunting, a lush oasis hidden beneath the ice, a city of light, a message of peace delivered to a world on the brink of nuclear annihilation. Whether real or imagined, it resonates because Antarctica is precisely the kind of place where the improbable still feels possible. Even without the diary, Operation Highjump carried its own oddities. The mission was scheduled to last 6 to 8 months, yet it was terminated after barely 8 weeks. Officially, the expedition faced harsh weather, logistical failures, and accidents. Several aircraft were lost, including the Martin PBM-5 Mariner George I, which crashed into the ice with 3 men killed. The survivors endured days of hunger and frostbite before rescue. Reports spoke of mechanical failures, sudden storms, and unexplained difficulties. To some, these were predictable dangers of polar exploration. To others, they hinted at encounters unrecorded in official logs. Consider the geopolitical backdrop. In 1938, Nazi Germany had dispatched its own Antarctic expedition, led by the MS Schwabenland. The swastika-marked darts it dropped across Queen Maud Land proclaimed a territory the Germans called Neuschwabenland. After the war, rumours swirled that fleeing Nazis had built secret bases beneath the ice, supplied by submarines. When U-530 and U-977 surfaced in Argentina months after the war's end, conspiracy theorists connected the dots. The submarines had ferried leaders, scientists, or advanced technology to hidden strongholds in Antarctica. Could Operation Highjump have been, at least in part, an attempt to locate and neutralize such a base? The Cold War makes this plausible. In 1946, tensions with the Soviet Union were mounting. Antarctica, rich in untapped resources and strategically located between hemispheres, could not be ignored. If the United States believed that remnants of Nazi technology or Soviet interests lingered there, sending a fleet was not madness but precaution. Yet the secrecy that clung to the expedition, the missing records, the cryptic interviews, the sudden end, kept the mystery alive. Eyewitness accounts decades later added more fuel. Some participants hinted at encounters with unidentified flying objects during aerial surveys. Discs of light moving with impossible speed. Objects that disrupted instruments and vanished without sound. These testimonies, unverified and scattered, merge easily with the era's fascination with UFOs. Still, the timing is uncanny. Operation Highjump ended in March 1947. By June, Kenneth Arnold saw his 9 flying saucers over Washington. By July, Roswell became a word that would never fade. Was it coincidence, or a chain reaction sparked by something glimpsed in the Antarctic skies? Operation Highjump reminds us that Antarctica is more than ice. It is a stage where myth and secrecy intertwine, where governments act with urgency that belies their official explanations. The sheer magnitude of the operation tells us this was no casual survey. Whether it confronted hostile weather, hidden Nazi remnants, or something more unearthly, it carried weight enough to alter the course of Byrd's own words, to plant seeds of speculation that still grow today. And so, as the fleet sailed home and the ice reclaimed its silence, the continent's enigma deepened. We are left with a paradox, a mission too large for its stated purpose, too short for its goals, too strange in its aftermath. Did Byrd glimpse a hidden kingdom, as the diary claims? Did he encounter remnants of Nazi ambition? Did he brush against something otherworldly? Or was the mystery born from the very nature of Antarctica itself, a land where silence magnifies everything left unsaid? Whatever the truth, Operation Highjump stands as one of the great unanswered chapters in the story of the frozen continent. It shows us how power, fear, and myth converge in the white void, and it prepares us for the next layer of the mystery. If Antarctica hides more than ice and mountains, could it also conceal entire worlds beneath its surface, realms long imagined in myth as the hollow earth? Legends are often dismissed as metaphor, yet sometimes they persist across continents and centuries with such similarity that they demand more attention. Myths of hidden realms beneath the Earth's surface are among the most persistent of all. The Tibetans spoke of Shambhala, a radiant kingdom concealed behind snow-clad mountains, where enlightened rulers guarded wisdom until the right moment to reveal it. In Hindu cosmology, Patala was an underworld, richly adorned and inhabited by Nagas, serpent beings with jewels of light on their foreheads. In the myths of the Maya, the underworld of Xibalba was a place where rivers flowed with blood, ruled by lords who tested the souls of mortals. Even in the Norse sagas, Yggdrasil's roots touched wells in the deep, hidden realms of power and fate. These stories share a motif. Beneath our feet lie hidden worlds, either paradises or prisons, realms of gods, spirits, or forgotten peoples. To cultures scattered by oceans and divided by centuries, the notion of an underworld was not metaphor alone, but geography. A place one might stumble into through a cave, a volcano, or perhaps the poles. The hollow earth hypothesis, first seriously proposed in the 19th century, transformed myth into speculation. John Cleves Sims Jr., a US Army officer turned lecturer, declared in 1818 that the Earth was hollow and habitable within, with great openings at both poles leading inside. He envisioned lush inner continents, warmed by an inner sun, where unknown civilizations might flourish. Though dismissed by scientists of his day, Sims inspired novels, societies, and even petitions to Congress to fund polar expeditions. Fiction writers carried the idea forward, most famously Jules Verne in Journey to the Center of the Earth, where prehistoric creatures still roamed vast caverns. By the time Admiral Richard Byrd's Antarctic expeditions captured headlines in the mid-20th century, the hollow Earth idea was already part of the cultural imagination. The alleged secret diary attributed to Byrd seemed to confirm it. In its pages, he described being pulled by strange forces into a hidden valley of warmth and light in the middle of Antarctica, encountering beings tall, radiant, and wise. They welcomed him to a subterranean city called Agartha. Its halls, he claimed, glowed with a light that had no source. Its inhabitants warned him of humanity's destructive path, nuclear weapons, ecological destruction, and urged him to carry their message back to the surface. Whether the diary is authentic or not, the vision it paints is striking. Imagine flying over endless white ice, your instruments failing, and suddenly glimpsing a valley green and alive, untouched by the cold. Trees sway in a wind that should not exist. Rivers glisten in sunlight that somehow penetrates where it should not. Towers of strange geometry rise from the earth, their walls glowing with a steady radiance. The beings who greet you are serene, their eyes luminous, their voices like resonant chords. They speak not of conquest but of stewardship, asking humanity to turn away from destruction. Such imagery draws directly from the collective mythos of Shambhala, Patala, and other hidden realms. Geology, of course, provides no room for hollow planets. Seismic waves travel through the Earth and reveal a solid mantle and a molten core, not vast interior continents. And yet, Antarctica complicates this certainty. Beneath its crust, geothermal hotspots carve ice-free valleys. Radar scans reveal voids the size of cities under the glaciers. In 2020, studies near Queen Maud Land discovered massive cavities beneath the ice sheet. Officially, these were explained as meltwater erosion, but to those who already believe, they were the hidden gates, entrances into Agartha itself. The McMurdo Dry Valleys offer another point of resonance. These are one of the driest places on Earth, barren and rocky, despite lying within the coldest continent. Yet microbial life thrives there in conditions resembling Mars. Some call it a natural experiment, a glimpse of how ecosystems could survive sealed away in darkness and isolation. For those inclined toward mystery, the dry valleys are proof that life finds refuge in hidden pockets. If microbes endure there, why not larger forms in greater voids below? In myth, Agartha is not merely a physical place, but a spiritual one, where advanced beings preserve wisdom from past ages. Esoteric traditions describe it as a hub of tunnels and chambers spanning the globe, with entrances at the poles, the Himalayas, and other sacred sites. Accounts from European occultists in the 19th century described it as the center of a subterranean network linking all hidden realms. To imagine Antarctica as its gateway is to connect the frozen continent with legends from Tibet, India, and Mesoamerica. It becomes not a blank wilderness, but a keystone in humanity's mythic geography. The hollow world idea lingers like an echo in stone. It suggests that what we call history is not only sealed under ice, but hidden beneath our own steps, preserved in chambers where civilizations older than memory may have endured. Perhaps the radiant beings of myth were not gods at all, but the last emissaries of those hidden worlds. Perhaps the pyramids and megaliths scattered across continents are not isolated marvels, but fragments of a buried design surfacing briefly, like signals from the depths, before vanishing again into the cycle of forgetting. Skeptics remind us that such visions are speculative, that myths are metaphors for spiritual truths rather than literal geographies. They point to geology, to physics, to the absence of physical evidence. Yet even skeptics acknowledge that Antarctica hides immense voids we have yet to explore, landscapes unseen for millions of years. And myth, like ice, preserves memory in forms we cannot always decipher. What makes the hollow world hypothesis endure is not proof, but resonance. Across cultures, across ages, humans have believed that wisdom survives beneath mountains, beneath caves, beneath ice. Antarctica, with its impenetrable silence, becomes the perfect canvas for this belief. Its inaccessibility invites projection. Its vastness invites speculation. Its silence invites us to imagine what voices might be waiting within. And so, the hollow world may not describe geology, but it describes humanity's longing, the hope that knowledge was not lost, but safeguarded. That even if civilizations rise and fall on the surface, there is a sanctuary beneath, a place where memory endures until we are ready to listen. Yet sometimes the Earth itself speaks in stranger ways. In one corner of Antarctica, a glacier bleeds red into the snow, staining the white with scarlet streams. Science explains it as iron-rich brine, but to the eye it appears as though the continent itself is wounded. If Antarctica hides worlds within, it also reveals signs on its surface, bleeding ice that whispers of mysteries deeper than we can yet fathom. In Antarctica, silence is not empty. It presses like weight. It hums in the ears until even the beat of your heart feels intrusive. And then, out of nowhere, that silence is broken by something almost impossible. A river of red flowing from a glacier's mouth, staining the white with scarlet. This is Blood Falls, one of the most haunting natural wonders on Earth. To those who first saw it in 1911, members of Robert Falcon Scott's expedition, it seemed as if the continent itself were bleeding. A glacier, alive, wounded, exhaling a crimson secret. At first no one knew what to make of it. The explorers described it in hushed tones, unsure whether it was omen or miracle. Some speculated about algae, others about minerals, but the sight was so uncanny that it could not help but attract whispers of the supernatural. The contrast was too striking. White ice and black rock split open by a gash of living red, as though the land itself had a hidden pulse. Decades later, science offered an explanation, though even this reads like something from another world. Beneath the Taylor Glacier lies a pocket of water sealed off for more than 5 million years. Trapped under pressure, deprived of light, it became brine, dense, salty, and rich with iron. When fissures open, the brine seeps through. As it touches oxygen at the surface, the iron oxidizes, turning red like rust. The glacier is not bleeding, but breathing out a memory of ancient seas. But the story did not end with chemistry. When scientists studied the brine more closely, they discovered something astonishing: life. Microorganisms, invisible but thriving, had survived in this isolated pocket for millions of years. They live without sunlight, without oxygen, feeding instead on sulfur and iron. These microbes are extremophiles, adapted to conditions once thought impossible for life. Their existence has shaken our understanding of biology. For if life can survive here, cut off and frozen, then it could survive in equally hostile environments. On Mars, beneath the ice of Europa, in the oceans of Enceladus. Blood Falls is not just a wound in the ice, it is a window into alien oceans. The microbes themselves are like time travelers. Isolated for millions of years, they have evolved along pathways diverging from the surface world. They may preserve ancient traits, echoes of the first forms of life on Earth. Studying them could give us clues to how life began, how it adapts, and how it might endure long after humanity has passed. In this sense, Blood Falls is not simply spectacle, it is archive, another chapter in Antarctica's role as the keeper of Earth's true history. Yet even with scientific explanations, mystery clings to Blood Falls. For one, its flow is unpredictable. Some years the red stream gushes vividly, painting the ice like a wound reopened. Other years it dwindles to a trickle or vanishes, as though the glacier is holding its breath. Satellite images taken in 2022 revealed faint outlines in the surrounding ice, patterns some claimed resembled channels or even structures beneath. While most researchers attribute this to natural ice dynamics, the imagery added fuel to speculation. Is Blood Falls not merely natural, but linked to something hidden deeper below? Stranger still are the experiences of those who work nearby. Scientists stationed in the McMurdo Dry Valleys, where Blood Falls emerges, often report unsettling sensations. Whispers carried on the wind, tools disappearing only to reappear, footsteps in snow with no one around to make them. Psychological stress in isolation may explain much of this, but the red cascade adds an eerie backdrop that amplifies every shadow. Some have described feeling as if they were being watched, not by one another, but by the land itself. For conspiracy-minded observers, Blood Falls is no quirk of geology. They imagine it as a vent, a release valve for something artificial or ancient hidden beneath. Could it be a marker, a signal deliberately designed to draw attention? Others whisper of biological experiments, either ancient or modern, that use the hidden subglacial lake as a laboratory. The idea sounds fantastical, yet in a continent where so much remains unexplored and access is tightly controlled, such speculation thrives. And there is more. In the 1970s, soil samples near the dry valleys showed isotopic anomalies, unusual chemical signatures that some argued hinted at processes beyond known geology. The findings were never fully explained, and though mainstream science dismissed them as contamination or error, they linger in the lore of Antarctica's mysteries. Could they be connected to the same subterranean system that feeds Blood Falls? Even without speculation, the implications are profound. The brine pocket beneath the glacier is part of a larger hidden network, a subglacial hydrology that may connect to other lakes deep beneath Antarctica's crust. Blood Falls may be only a leak from a far greater reservoir, a body of water untouched for eons, carrying life forms and chemical signatures that could rewrite our understanding of the planet. Every drop of red water is a message, hinting at unseen chambers below. For those drawn to myth, the imagery is irresistible. A glacier that bleeds evokes ancient stories of cursed lands, of mountains alive with spirits, of Earth itself as a living organism. Online forums compare it to the veins of a hidden giant, or even to gateways between worlds. Its crimson stream a warning that the vault beneath is not empty. To some, it is a scar marking the entrance to Agartha. To others, it is evidence of hidden technology leaching chemicals into the ice. Yet perhaps the truest mystery lies in how Blood Falls blurs categories. It is at once natural and supernatural, explained yet unexplained, science and myth. It reveals the resilience of life and the fragility of our knowledge. Standing before it, one cannot help but feel that the glacier is speaking in its own language, a language of colour and flow, a language we have not yet learned to translate. And so Blood Falls ceases to be just a spectacle. It becomes a wound that refuses to close, a scarlet reminder that the ice is not lifeless. Within its flow are whispers of oceans sealed away, microbes carrying the breath of forgotten ages, and the strange proof that even in silence, the Earth remembers. The glacier bleeds not death, but memory, a living trace of worlds that once were, released drop by drop into the present. But this scarlet mystery is only a doorway. If a single fissure in a glacier can release life untouched for 5 million years, what lies in the vast lakes sealed deeper below? Antarctica hides more than pockets. It hides entire oceans under its ice. To step further into its enigma, we must descend into those alien waters where silence and darkness have preserved secrets beyond imagination. Antarctica is often imagined as a blank slate, a flat sheet of ice stretching to infinity. But beneath that veneer lies an entire hidden landscape, carved and veined like a secret map. In the last half-century, radar, seismic surveys, and satellite imaging have revealed a world that should not exist. More than 400 subglacial lakes, some small as ponds, others vast as inland seas. Together they form a hidden hydrological network, rivers and reservoirs flowing in silence, unseen for millions of years. If Blood Falls is a glimpse of a secret vein, then these lakes are the hidden heart of the continent. The most famous of these hidden waters is Lake Vostok. Beneath nearly 4 kilometers of ice in East Antarctica, it is one of the largest freshwater lakes on Earth, 250 kilometers long and up to 80 kilometers wide. It has been sealed off from the atmosphere for at least 15 million years, a self-contained world beneath crushing ice. Russian scientists drilled into it in 2012, and when water from the lake surged upward, it was like opening a vault untouched since long before humanity walked the Earth. Traces of microbial DNA were later found, suggesting that life endures even here, in darkness, pressure, and isolation. Lake Mercer, discovered in 2019 and hidden beneath a kilometer of ice, offered another revelation. When researchers drilled into it, they found microbial communities alive, and traces of carbon dating back thousands of years. The presence of organic material suggested that Antarctic subglacial lakes are not sterile. Instead, they are ecological time capsules, carrying whispers of ancient ecosystems. And then there is Lake Whillans, drilled in 2013. Scientists expected to find little more than salt water. Instead, they discovered nearly 4,000 different species of microbes thriving in an environment cut off from sunlight for millennia. It was as if the lake had preserved an entire microbial metropolis, adapting and evolving in silence. In 2020, researchers identified another body of water beneath the ice, which they named Lake Enigma. Unlike others, its radar profile suggested structures within, mats of microbial growth forming shapes almost architectural, pillars and ridges like forests at a microscopic scale. If verified, this would not only be life, but life creating complex, stable structures in complete darkness. The implications stretch far beyond Antarctica. For astrobiologists, these lakes are analogues of extraterrestrial oceans. Europa, a moon of Jupiter, is thought to have a subsurface ocean beneath its icy crust. Saturn's moon Enceladus spews water vapor into space from fissures in its ice. Mars shows evidence of ancient rivers and perhaps briny subsurface lakes. If microbes thrive in Antarctica's hidden waters, then life could thrive elsewhere in the solar system. In this way, Antarctica does not merely preserve Earth's history, it may reveal the universality of life itself. But the mysteries are not all scientific. Some radar scans have revealed anomalies that resist easy explanation. In 2018, a team studying the Princess Elizabeth Land region discovered a radar signature suggesting a cavity 2/3 the size of Manhattan, beneath 3 kilometers of ice. Officially, it was explained as meltwater erosion, but some whispered of structures or chambers too regular to be natural. In 2021, near Lake Vostok, electromagnetic readings detected pulses without clear geological cause. Once again, explanations were offered: ice friction, instrumentation noise, yet the anomalies added to the lore. What if these lakes hide more than microbes? Ancient myths, too, seem to echo this hidden hydrology. Greek poets spoke of Oceanus, a vast river encircling the world beneath the land. Norse mythology described wells at the roots of Yggdrasil, where fate itself was written in water. In the Hindu Mahabharata, subterranean oceans are described as vast and luminous, homes to ancient beings. These stories, scattered across civilizations, suggest that humanity has long imagined hidden waters beneath the surface. To modern ears, they sound poetic. But in the context of Antarctica, they take on new weight. The myths may be metaphor, or they may be memory. The subglacial lakes are more than hidden waters. They are living fossils, ecosystems untouched by extinction, archives written in DNA older than any civilization we know. If advanced life ever thrived on this land, perhaps it retreated into these silent chambers, preserved like relics waiting in the dark. Even without ruins or artifacts, the lakes stand as monuments in their own right. Liquid libraries of time, holding the memory of vanished climates, forgotten species, and civilizations erased from the surface world. Skeptics argue the romance of these lakes is overblown. They say microbes prove resilience, not hidden civilizations. Voids prove geology, not chambers of knowledge. Yet skepticism cannot erase the fact that these lakes exist, vast and alive, beneath a continent we barely understand. Less than 2% of Antarctica's subglacial hydrology has been explored. 98% remains sealed, waiting. Imagine drilling into a chamber of water untouched for 15 million years and finding not only microbes but structures, a lattice of stone or metal or something unrecognizable. Imagine a city entombed in darkness, preserved by the ice as perfectly as Pompeii was preserved by ash. Imagine DNA sequences so alien that they reveal an entirely new branch of life, rewriting biology. These visions may sound fantastical, but so too would bloodfalls have sounded before it was first seen. A glacier that bleeds. The lakes beneath Antarctica remind us that the continent is layered, ice upon rock, water beneath ice, and silence covering all. Each layer holds secrets, each is an invitation. Bloodfalls was the doorway, the lakes are the corridors beyond, and beyond them may lie deeper mysteries still, where biology blends with myth. For in the waters around Antarctica, legends speak of colossal beings, pale shapes rising from the waves, tentacles unfurling from the deep. If the subglacial lakes preserve alien microbes, perhaps the Southern Ocean preserves something larger. Creatures that survived when the world changed, guardians of the frozen vault. To find them, we must step out of the lakes and into the sea. The Southern Ocean is unlike any other. Encircling Antarctica with currents so strong they stitch the world's seas together, it is a liquid fortress that both protects and isolates. Within its swells, colossal icebergs drift like cathedrals adrift, creaking and splitting as waves gnaw at their frozen foundations. Beneath them lies a realm of twilight where light filters only faintly, where pressure deepens and sound carries in strange, distorted ways. It is here, in this cold abyss, that myths and biology intertwine, a theatre for creatures both real and imagined, beings that stir in the human imagination as guardians of Earth's forgotten ages. Among the most whispered of these legends is the Ningen. First discussed in Japanese maritime forums during the early 2000s, the Ningen is described as an enormous, pale, humanoid figure, sometimes 30 meters long, drifting silently through Antarctic waters. Witnesses claim to see arms spreading wide like fins, legs trailing like tails, and a face unsettlingly human, blank, white, with dark eyes staring from a body otherwise featureless. Some accounts describe a smooth, seamless skin, glistening in the floodlights of passing vessels before vanishing into the waves. Blurred photographs and shaky videos surfaced online, always indistinct, yet captivating enough to give the legend form. Skeptics dismiss these sightings as misidentified icebergs, whales, or tricks of light. And yet, the descriptions resonate with ancient sea lore. For centuries, sailors have spoken of beings that emerge from the deep, not monstrous like the kraken, but eerily human. In Inuit tradition, there are the Kalupalik, pale-skinned water-dwellers with elongated limbs. In Celtic myths, Selkies shift between seal and human form. The Ningen may be a modern echo of timeless archetypes, the sea as mirror, reflecting human shape back at us. If the Ningen is the human-shaped shadow of the Southern Ocean, the kraken is its tentacled terror. Rooted in Scandinavian sagas, the kraken was said to rise from the deep and wrap entire ships in its limbs. For centuries, it remained the stuff of myth, until the ocean reluctantly revealed the colossal squid. First filmed alive in 2006, the colossal squid dwarfs its giant cousin, with hooked tentacles, swiveling claws, and eyes the size of dinner plates. A specimen caught near Antarctica in 2007 measured over 14 meters, its mass and alien anatomy fueling the thought that sailors had not exaggerated so much after all. Yet the legend persists beyond even that. In 2016, a satellite image near Deception Island appeared online, showing a long shadow stretching through the water over 100 meters in length. Officials explained it as a sea stack, a submerged rock formation. But to many who gazed at the image, its outline resembled an enormous tentacled creature just below the surface. The Southern Ocean, after all, is less explored than Mars. It is easy, and perhaps reasonable, to believe that something vast could remain unseen in its depths. Science, too, supports the plausibility of hidden giants. Deep-sea surveys in the Ross Sea have revealed new species of amphipods, fish with antifreeze proteins in their blood, and creatures glowing with bioluminescence. In 2019, researchers discovered a sponge colony thriving beneath 900 meters of ice, clinging to a boulder where no sunlight reached. Each revelation reminds us how little we know. Life has a habit of appearing where we least expect it, thriving in forms that once seemed impossible. For those seeking the true history of Earth in Antarctica, these creatures, real or legendary, become living fossils, survivors of ages we cannot otherwise access. The Ningen, if real, might be an evolved offshoot of marine mammals, adapted to ice and abyss. The colossal squid may be a relic lineage stretching back to the time of dinosaurs. Even myths of the kraken could encode memories of encounters with creatures glimpsed but not understood, passed down in oral traditions until they became monsters. Some fringe theories go further. They suggest these beings are not remnants but guardians, watchers of the frozen vault, perhaps linked to myths of Agartha or Atlantis. In this view, the pale form of the Ningen is not simply an animal, but a sentinel, surfacing now and then as reminder that the waters conceal more than fish. Tentacled shadows become not anomalies, but deliberate warnings. These ideas blur into the esoteric, yet they persist because the Southern Ocean itself is a perfect stage, vast, unmeasured, unknowable. Skeptics will always counter with rational explanations. The ocean is deceptive. Icebergs can appear alive in shifting light. Whales can breach in unexpected ways. Sonar pings can distort into false shapes. And yet, dismissals do not erase the unease. For even confirmed science, colossal squids with eyes like worlds, sponges living beneath solid ice, fish that swim in liquid colder than freezing, is strange enough to inspire awe. The myths are only exaggerations of truths already too strange to believe. This is how Antarctica continues to hold Earth's history, not only through ruins or fossils, but through life itself, the survivors, the anomalies, the shadows. The Southern Ocean is a living archive, where creatures embody eras long past, evolving in silence while the surface world forgets. Each pale shadow seen from a ship, each sonar anomaly, each satellite image becomes another page in that archive, daring us to look closer. And while legends of sea beings stir the imagination, the human world has also sought this ocean for reasons less mythical but equally haunting. In 1938, Nazi Germany sent an expedition southward, marking Antarctica with swastikas and whispers of secret strongholds. The waters that once carried myths of kraken and Ningen also carried warships and submarines. What those missions sought, and perhaps found, still lingers in rumour. To understand Antarctica as a stage not only for myths and biology, but for ambition and secrecy, we must now follow the trail into Neuschwabenland, where flags fell on ice and rumours of hidden strongholds began. December 1938, the ship MS Schwabenland pushes through heavy seas, its bow cutting the South Atlantic as if driven by obsession. On board are not only sailors, but scientists, aviators, and Nazi Party officials. The vessel is outfitted with catapults to launch Dornier-Wall seaplanes, capable of surveying vast stretches of ice from above. Their destination is Queen Maud Land, a frozen wilderness claimed by no nation. To the world, it was an expedition of science and resource gathering. To those who watched from the shadows of history, it became the seed of a legend, that Nazi Germany sought more than whales and weather. They sought a hidden power beneath the ice. The official record tells a story of economic pragmatism. Germany, preparing for war, was hungry for whale oil, essential for producing soap, margarine, and industrial lubricants. The Schwabenland expedition photographed more than 600,000 square kilometers of Antarctica, dropped swastika-marked aluminum darts to stake symbolic claims, and mapped glaciers and mountains few outsiders had ever seen. By February 1939, it returned home with images, samples, and notes. Straightforward, mundane. But secrecy always breeds suspicion. Why dispatch such a well-equipped mission at the very edge of war? Why invest in Antarctica when Europe itself was on the brink? After the fall of the Third Reich, these questions deepened. Rumours emerged that the Nazis had discovered vast ice caverns in Queen Maud Land, warmed by geothermal activity, and had begun to build there. A base, a sanctuary, perhaps even a fortress for technology too advanced for its time. They named the land Neuschwabenland. Submarines added fuel to the fire. In 1945, 2 German U-boats, U-530 and U-977, surrendered in Argentina months after Germany's defeat. Their captains offered vague explanations for why they remained at sea so long. Some speculated they had carried cargo or high-ranking officials to hidden Antarctic bases before turning themselves in. The possibility of Nazi leaders escaping to the south, sustained by secret enclaves beneath the ice, became irresistible to conspiracy theorists. From there, the story wove itself into the fabric of Cold War myth. Operation Highjump, launched by the United States in 1946-47, was said to have been more than a scientific survey. Whispers claimed it was a confrontation, a search and destroy mission against Nazi remnants hiding in Antarctica. When the expedition returned months earlier than planned, rumours surged that American aircraft had clashed with strange discs, flying saucers of Nazi origin, built with technology gleaned from esoteric research or even otherworldly sources. The rumours meshed with real history. During the war, Nazi Germany had indeed pursued experimental designs, rocket-powered aircraft, jet engines, and rumours of disc-shaped craft like the Haunebu or the enigmatic Die Glock, the Bell. These projects were shrouded in secrecy and, in most cases, never advanced beyond prototypes. Yet their existence suggested that the regime was willing to explore technologies far outside conventional boundaries. If fragments of such work were transported to Antarctica, the frozen continent could have become a repository of the Third Reich's strangest ambitions. Queen Maud Land itself holds strange features that feed speculation. The Schirmacher Oasis, a rare ice-free plateau within the region, spans 25 miles long and 2 to 3 miles wide. With freshwater lakes and rocky ground, it stands out like a scar of warmth in the frozen desert. To believers, it was the perfect place for a base. To geologists, it is simply an anomaly caused by geothermal heat and unique wind patterns. But in a landscape of ice, even natural anomalies take on the flavour of mystery. By the 1970s and 80s, the idea of Nazi Antarctic bases had merged with UFO lore. Authors suggested that Neuschwabenland was home not only to Nazi remnants, but to secret alliances with beings from elsewhere, exchanging technology for sanctuary. Underground caverns became imagined as hangars, hidden runways carved beneath the ice. These ideas appeared in pulp books, whispered at conferences, and spread through networks of speculation. No physical proof ever surfaced, but the story refused to die. Then came modern anomalies. In 2018, radar surveys detected a massive void beneath the Thwaites Glacier, nearly 2/3 the size of Manhattan. Officially explained as a cavity formed by meltwater, the discovery reignited claims of hidden chambers. In 2020, a Russian team reported unexplained electromagnetic pulses near Queen Maud Land. Natural processes were blamed, yet the findings quickly vanished from headlines, archived but not discussed. To those who already believed, these were not random phenomena, but footprints of the past. The Antarctic Treaty of 1959 added yet another layer. Signed by nations otherwise locked in Cold War tension, it froze territorial claims and restricted activity on the continent. Officially, the goal was peaceful cooperation and scientific preservation. Unofficially, for conspiracy theorists, it became proof that the great powers had found something they did not wish to reveal. Why else, they ask, would rivals agree so quickly and so completely on anything? Skeptics counter with reason. The Nazi Antarctic expedition was real, but its aims were limited to whaling and mapping. No credible evidence supports the idea of hidden bases. Submarines surrendered in Argentina because captains sought refuge, not because they unloaded secret cargo. The radar anomalies are natural geology. The electromagnetic pulses were instrumentation errors. And yet, skepticism cannot fully erase the allure. For Antarctica is a continent built on absence. Absence of access, absence of proof, absence of answers. Into that void stories flow like water, freezing into legends. What matters is not whether the Nazis truly built hidden strongholds, but why the idea refuses to vanish. Perhaps it persists because it touches something deeper. The sense that Antarctica, with its silence and its shadows, must be hiding more than ice. That in its caverns, sealed away from war and weather alike, humanity has left behind not just myths, but memory. And so the image lingers. Swastika-marked darts falling on pristine snow, seaplanes circling mountains untouched by history, U-boats slipping beneath polar seas. Were they gestures of vanity, empty claims on barren ice? Or were they the first strokes of a darker legacy, buried where the world is least likely to look? Antarctica does not answer. It keeps its silence. But the story does not end here. For even as whispers of Nazi bases spread, another thread took hold. Reports of disks in the sky, lights that defied physics, objects that moved like no human craft. If Antarctica was stage to hidden strongholds, perhaps it was also host to visitors from beyond. And so the legend shifts from war machines to flying saucers, from Neuschwabenland to the UFO connection. The summer of 1947 brought a new word into the human imagination: flying saucer. Pilot Kenneth Arnold, soaring near Mount Rainier in June of that year, reported 9 crescent-shaped objects darting across the sky, like saucers skipping on water. Newspapers seized the phrase, and within weeks reports of similar objects flooded in from around the world. That same summer, near Roswell, New Mexico, an incident occurred that still fuels speculation today. And just months earlier, Admiral Byrd's Operation Highjump had ended abruptly in Antarctica. To some, the timing was more than coincidence. What if the skies over Antarctica had already hosted these objects? Rumours claimed that Byrd's pilots encountered strange craft, disks that moved faster than any known aircraft, turning without wings or sound. These stories, though unverified, took root in an era alive with whispers of secret Nazi technology and hidden bases beneath the ice. After all, Germany during the war had poured resources into experimental designs, jet fighters, long-range rockets, and rumours of disc-shaped craft like the Haunebu or the mysterious Die Glocke, the bell. Could fragments of such experiments have made their way to Antarctica, shielded from Allied eyes? Science insists there is no evidence of Nazi UFOs. The documents are inconclusive, the accounts often fabricated. Yet in the absence of certainty, myth flourishes. Operation Paperclip, which brought German scientists to the United States after the war, only deepened suspicion. Figures like Werner von Braun transformed American rocketry and space programs. If rockets were real, could stranger designs have been hidden, their blueprints frozen beneath Antarctic ice? But the UFO connection stretches beyond human technology. Many accounts describe not machines of steel and rivets, but craft that move as though unbound by physics, shimmering, glowing, vanishing. Some suggest they were not built by humans at all. In this vision, Antarctica is not simply a refuge for Nazi experiments, but a staging ground for something older, otherworldly. The continent's inaccessibility makes it a perfect guardian, a land where visitors from beyond might come and go unseen, their presence hidden in the storms and ice, Satellite images in 2023 seem to fuel this narrative again. A long straight trail appeared etched across the ice, leading to a massive dark object tilted at an angle. To some, it looked like a crash site. Others noted an oval shape nearby, half buried in snow, a disk perhaps, or merely rock smoothed by wind. Natural explanations are easy: ice movement, shadows, digital distortion. But when viewed in the context of 70 years of rumours, they feel like one more fragment of a larger puzzle. How does this illuminate the idea that Antarctica holds Earth's true history? Because UFOs, whether human or not, suggest that Antarctica is not just a passive archive but an active frontier. If the skies above its glaciers once carried craft beyond our comprehension, then the continent is part of a larger story. Earth as a crossroads of knowledge, technology, and beings that defy our timelines. The pyramids, the maps, the hidden bases all become threads in a tapestry that stretches from ancient civilizations to post-war experiments to cosmic visitors. Skeptics will remind us that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and yet, absence of proof is not proof of absence. The UFO mystery has persisted precisely because it refuses to close. Antarctica, with its silence, magnifies this refusal. It is the perfect backdrop for secrecy, a place where the unknown can hide in plain sight. And while governments issue denials, they also enforce restrictions. After the Antarctic Treaty of 1959, vast areas of the continent became off-limits, no-fly zones, zones accessible only to a select few. Officially, these are for environmental protection. But the timing, in the wake of UFO flurries and Cold War tensions, fuels another thought. Were they also meant to guard secrets the ice has not yet revealed? The story of Antarctica now turns from skies to treaties, from luminous objects to ink on paper. For in 1959, the world's rival powers, locked in suspicion everywhere else, suddenly agreed on one thing: Antarctica must be sealed. On December 1st, 1959, 12 nations signed a document in Washington, D.C. that would alter the destiny of the last untouched continent. The Antarctic Treaty, a short text of only 14 articles, declared that this frozen land was to be preserved for peace and science alone. No military operations, no nuclear testing, no territorial expansion. In a world fractured by the Cold War, where superpowers stared each other down across every border, Antarctica became the one place where rivals agreed to share. On the surface, it was a triumph of cooperation. Beneath that surface, it has long been read as something else: a wall of silence. The timing raises questions. Why, at the very moment the United States and Soviet Union raced for nuclear supremacy, would they set aside rivalry to protect a remote, hostile land? Why declare that no new territorial claims could be made? Why lock the continent away under strict controls, where only scientists vetted and supervised could enter its depths? Environmental protection and research are noble causes, but the treaty was signed long before ecological awareness became a global priority. It feels premature, almost preemptive, as though it answered a question the public had not yet asked. Some argue the treaty exists precisely because of discoveries that should never be exposed. The rumours of Operation Highjump's abrupt end, of Nazi strongholds in Neuschwabenland, of birds' strange warnings, all came less than 15 years before the treaty. Was the agreement in part a means of containing what had been found? The strict no-fly zones, the restricted research areas, the closed meetings of treaty powers each year, these features invite suspicion. Officially, they safeguard fragile ecosystems. Unofficially, they resemble quarantine. What might be quarantined? Some suggest ancient ruins hinted at by pyramid-shaped nunataks and satellite anomalies. Others point to the strange phenomena of blood falls, or the electromagnetic pulses detected near Queen Maud Land in 2020, unexplained but swiftly dismissed. Theorists even whisper of technology beyond human origin, stored or observed in places where only a handful of authorized researchers may tread. Whether myth or reality, the secrecy itself becomes fuel for belief. The Antarctic Treaty is a reminder that silence can thunder louder than words. When nations as divided as the United States and the Soviet Union suddenly set aside rivalry, it hints that the stakes run deeper than politics or territory. Perhaps the most powerful evidence is not what is shown, but what is withheld. For if the continent were only empty ice, why build such extraordinary walls around it? Of course, skeptics counter with simpler explanations. They say the treaty's goal was to prevent conflict over resources, to protect a fragile wilderness, to ensure that Antarctica became a laboratory for global science rather than a battlefield. In this view, its success proves its value. 6 decades of peace, major scientific discoveries from ozone depletion to climate records, all made possible by collaboration. The secrecy, they argue, is bureaucratic, not conspiratorial. And yet, the mystery persists, because while the treaty proclaims open science, the reality is controlled access. Because while it forbids military activity, military bases from earlier expeditions remain buried in ice. Because while it invites cooperation, vast regions of the continent are still unexplored, invisible even to satellites, their access regulated by committees the public seldom sees. So the Antarctic Treaty stands like an invisible fortress, protecting, restricting, concealing. Whether its walls guard only fragile ecosystems or also forgotten legacies, we cannot say. But the effect is the same. Antarctica remains forbidden, its true history locked away. Still, silence is not permanent. Ice melts, climates shift, and in the layers beneath, secrets emerge. Fossilized forests found near Beardmore Glacier remind us that this land was not always frozen. There was a time when rivers flowed here, when life thrived in warmth. What else might remain preserved from that forgotten age? To find the true history of Earth in Antarctica, we must look backward, to the green continent that was. Close your eyes and strip away the ice. Imagine Antarctica not as a frozen desert, but as a land of forests and rivers. The air is cool but not bitter, the skies alive with migrating birds, and valleys covered with ferns, conifers, and flowering plants. This is not fantasy. This is Antarctica as it once was, millions of years before the first human story was told. Evidence of this ancient paradise comes from deep beneath the glaciers. In 1912, near the Beardmore Glacier, explorers uncovered fossilized leaves, impressions of beech trees where no tree should grow. At first they were dismissed as mistakes. Later, drilling and sediment cores confirmed the truth. Antarctica was once lush and temperate. On Alexander Island and along the Antarctic Peninsula, upright fossilized tree trunks still stand rooted in ancient soils, 7 meters tall, silent witnesses to a vanished climate. Pollen samples taken from the seabed near the continent reveal that as recently as 12 million years ago, tundra-like vegetation thrived here, long after ice had begun its slow conquest. Geology tells us why. Antarctica was once part of Gondwana, a supercontinent that linked South America, Africa, India, and Australia. When it drifted southward and the global climate cooled, glaciers spread, forests retreated, and the land we know today was locked beneath miles of ice. Yet the memory of its green age remains etched into stone, pollen, and fossil. This ancient greenness changes everything. It proves the land was once alive, rivers flowing, and forests breathing where now only glaciers stand. If plants could flourish, why not animals? And if animals, why not something more, people, or even civilizations, during those fleeting windows of warmth? Archaeology insists that humanity came too late, long after the ice had taken hold. Yet the fossils suggest a longer cycle, a deeper rhythm. Perhaps other intelligences walked here before us. Human, pre-human, or something altogether different. Their traces sealed in silence beneath the frozen vault. Some fringe reports hint at more. In 2023, surveys near the Doubleday Glacier detected shapes resembling massive stone blocks aligned in patterns. Descriptions mention markings and even coins bearing unfamiliar symbols. Mainstream geologists dismiss these as natural formations or misinterpretations, but the very possibility echoes earlier anomalies seen in satellite imagery: grid-like ridges, faint outlines of walls, even shadows of what appear to be buried pyramids. If such relics exist, they would prove that Antarctica was not just green, but once alive with cultures lost to time. Myth, too, lends weight. Many cultures preserve stories of southern lands swallowed or hidden. The Greeks with their Terra Australis Incognita, the Polynesians with chants of journeys to icy realms, even Plato's tale of Atlantis, a civilization destroyed by catastrophe. Could these myths, twisted by centuries of retelling, be fragments of memory from an age when Antarctica was a cradle rather than a tomb? Skeptics argue the fossils and pollen prove only natural history. Forests, yes, but no civilizations. Yet the preservation of ancient landscapes beneath the ice keeps the door open. Radar mapping has revealed entire river valleys, plateaus, and basins untouched for tens of millions of years. In East Antarctica, scientists discovered a buried region the size of Belgium, shaped like northern Europe's hills and waterways. What if preserved within are remnants of something unexpected? The notion that Antarctica was once green reshapes the paradox of the frozen vault. It tells us the continent is not static but cyclical, a land transformed by climate over eons. And within those cycles may lie the erased chapters of Earth's true history. As the glaciers close again over the fossilized forests, another thought surfaces. If Antarctica once flourished as a living continent, could it also have been the setting for humanity's greatest legend? The story of Atlantis, a civilization lost in a single night? Some have dared to say that Antarctica is not merely like Atlantis, but that it is Atlantis, frozen rather than drowned. Plato's words echo like a warning from across millennia, a mighty civilization, advanced in knowledge and power, destroyed in a single day and night of catastrophe. For centuries, the story of Atlantis has haunted human imagination. Was it allegory, myth, or memory? Many search for it in the Mediterranean, others in the Atlantic, still others in the Americas. But there is another theory, quieter yet more haunting, that Atlantis is Antarctica, not drowned by the sea, but entombed by ice. The idea gained momentum in the mid-20th century when Charles Hapgood proposed the theory of Earth crust displacement. Unlike the gradual drift of plate tectonics, Hapgood imagined that the planet's outer shell could shift suddenly, displacing entire continents in a geologic instant. He suggested that Antarctica, once positioned in a warmer latitude, might have supported a thriving civilization before a cataclysm shifted it to the pole, where ice rapidly engulfed it. In this vision, Atlantis did not vanish beneath the ocean, but froze beneath glaciers. Albert Einstein, though cautious, wrote a preface to Hapgood's work, noting that while speculative, the theory deserved consideration. What evidence supports such a bold claim? The ancient maps offer one clue: the Piri Reis chart, the Orontius Phineas map, the Mercator, depictions of southern lands that resemble Antarctica free of ice. The pyramid-like nunataks in the Ellsworth Mountains offer another, suggesting monumental architecture aligned with cardinal directions. Fossil forests prove the continent was once habitable, while radar scans reveal river valleys and basins buried intact beneath the ice. Add to this the myths of global floods, from Mesopotamia's Epic of Gilgamesh to the Hebrew Bible's Noah, to Andean tales of Viracocha, and a pattern emerges. Memory of a civilization drowned or erased by a sudden world-changing disaster. Could that disaster have been the Younger Dryas Cataclysm, roughly 12,800 years ago, when a sudden cooling swept the globe, glaciers surged, and sea levels rose? Some researchers suggest a comet impact or series of cosmic events triggered the change, wiping out megafauna and reshaping climates. If so, a flourishing society in Antarctica could have been obliterated overnight, its remnants sealed beneath snow that became ice, its story remembered only in myth as Atlantis. To imagine Antarctica as Atlantis is to reframe human history. Instead of isolated civilizations arising independently, we inherit fragments of one greater culture scattered like shards: pyramids in Egypt and Mesoamerica, megaliths in Peru and Turkey, myths of floods in every corner of the world. The ice becomes not only a preservative but a veil, hiding the ruins of a lost golden age. Skeptics rightly object. No confirmed ruins have been excavated, no artifacts retrieved. The geology of Earth crust displacement is not widely accepted, and Antarctica's ice is millions of years old, far predating human civilization. But speculation lingers in the spaces science cannot yet reach. Less than 2% of the continent has been explored beneath the ice. Radar anomalies, metallic fragments, and aligned ridges continue to surface in reports, often dismissed, sometimes quietly archived. The absence of evidence in a land sealed by 4 kilometers of ice is not evidence of absence. If Antarctica is Atlantis, then the true history of Earth lies frozen, waiting. Not erased, but postponed. Not destroyed, but preserved. And as the ice melts under the pressure of climate change, the possibility grows that fragments may surface. Walls, cities, technologies that belong to a time we have forgotten. The thought is staggering, unsettling, intoxicating. A frozen Atlantis explains why myths across cultures speak with one voice. It explains why ancient maps seem to show the impossible. It explains why nations protect Antarctica with secrecy. It explains why we feel, staring at the endless white, that something is hidden. But if civilizations rose and fell in cycles, their legacies erased by cataclysm, then perhaps we are not the first, and perhaps not the last. To probe that idea, we turn not only to ice and stone, but to the code written in our bodies. In our DNA, ghost populations whisper of forgotten lineages. Might they too lead us back to Antarctica's secret chapter? The truest archive of history is not written in stone or parchment, but in flesh. Within every cell of our bodies lies a record more ancient than monuments. DNA. It carries not only the instructions for life, but also the memory of migrations, unions, extinctions, and forgotten ancestors. When geneticists map these codes, they uncover echoes of lineages long thought lost. Ghost populations that have left no bones, no tools, no cities, only signatures in the double helix. And some of these echoes raise unsettling questions about what kinds of peoples once walked the Earth and where they may have come from. Take the Denisovans, identified from a single finger bone found in a Siberian cave. Though their remains are scarce, their genes ripple through the living, in Melanesians, Tibetans, and others. Then there are the ghost populations in Africa, lineages that diverged from humans hundreds of thousands of years ago, yet left traces in modern DNA. In the Amazon, researchers have found genetic markers linking indigenous peoples to ancestors more closely related to Australasians than to neighbouring populations, suggesting migrations or contacts across vast oceans in prehistory. These anomalies whisper of lost networks, vanished peoples, and journeys erased from memory. What if Antarctica was once part of this hidden web? If the continent was green and habitable in distant epochs, perhaps its inhabitants contributed to the genetic mosaic of humanity. Their bodies, swallowed by ice, would never be found. But fragments of their DNA may live on in us, ghostly signatures with no matching fossil record. Could the mysterious haplogroups scattered across the world be remnants of contacts with a civilization that thrived in Antarctica before it froze? Skeptics object. There is no direct evidence. But absence is the nature of ghost populations. Their reality is inferred from statistical shadows in genomes, the way faint stars appear only at the edge of vision. In the same way, Antarctica itself is known largely through inference, radar scans, cores, glimpses beneath the ice. Both DNA and ice preserve what is otherwise invisible. Together they may tell a story we are only beginning to piece together. Mythology often encodes similar themes. The Hopi speak of emerging into a new world after previous ones were destroyed. Polynesian voyagers tell of ancestors who sailed from lands that no longer exist. South American traditions describe Viracocha, a god of civilization who came from across the sea, tall and pale, bearing knowledge of building and writing. Could such myths preserve memories of encounters with lineages whose homelands are now erased? Perhaps even Antarctica itself? The deeper we dig into DNA, the more we see cycles of rise and erasure. Civilizations appear, vanish, and leave only traces, in myth, in ruins, in genomes. If Antarctica was once a cradle, its people may still speak through us, even if their cities lie buried. This transforms the question of Earth's true history. It is not only about monuments beneath the ice, but about who we are and who we once were. And yet, if Antarctica's voices survive in our blood, the continent itself remains silent, sealed by glaciers. But silence is not eternal. The ice is melting, the vault opening. Climate change, for all its danger, is also revelation. As glaciers retreat and shelves collapse, the land begins to give up what it has hidden. The past may soon step into the present, and with it, the possibility that the ghosts in our DNA will find their lost homeland. The Antarctic Peninsula groans and fractures under a warming sky. Once thought immutable, the ice has begun to surrender, retreating at a pace that startles even the scientists who measure it. In 2002, the Larsen B ice shelf, larger than the US state of Rhode Island, shattered in just a few weeks, its fragments drifting into the Southern Ocean like broken glass. In 2023, sea ice coverage fell to its lowest recorded extent, exposing coastlines unseen in human memory. The vault of silence is opening. What it reveals may reshape not only the future, but the forgotten past. When glaciers retreat, they do not reveal emptiness. They expose valleys carved by ancient rivers, bedrock shaped by forests, and sometimes anomalies. Near the Ross Ice Shelf in 2023, researchers reported metallic fragments embedded in melting ice. Official explanations spoke of natural debris, meteoritic material perhaps, but whispers spread quickly. Were these the remnants of lost technology, buried during a time when Antarctica was alive? Radar scans have also detected cavities the size of cities beneath the Thwaites Glacier, the Doomsday Glacier, whose collapse could raise sea levels by several meters. Officially, they are voids formed by meltwater. To others, they are vast chambers, perhaps natural, perhaps not. The thought that climate change might expose more than landscapes is unsettling. If structures lie beneath the ice, they may soon surface. Satellite images already stir speculation. Rectilinear ridges, grid-like shadows, even shapes resembling runways or doorways half covered by snow. Most are likely tricks of light or geology, but some feel deliberate, as though the continent itself is teasing us with glimpses of what it still guards. This raises a haunting irony. For decades, the Antarctic Treaty has restricted exploration, sealing the continent from prying eyes. But nature itself may be breaking that pact. As ice melts, it will reveal what no treaty can conceal. The process will be dangerous. Sea level rise threatening coastal cities, currents disrupted, weather unbalanced. Yet in catastrophe lies revelation. The true history of Earth, long locked away, may emerge not because we searched for it, but because we have forced the ice to retreat. And perhaps this is part of the cycle. Legends of Atlantis speak of a civilization erased overnight, drowned by rising seas. The Younger Dryas flood myths describe a world reset by sudden climate collapse. Now, in our time, the Earth warms again, seas rise again, and the ice yields its secrets. Are we witnessing the same pattern, a wheel of history that turns endlessly, erasing and revealing, burying and uncovering? If so, then Antarctica's melting is not only a warning of the future, but also a message from the past. Skeptics will insist that what we find will be geological, not monumental, microbial, not civilizational, and perhaps they are right. But even microbes preserved for millions of years tell a story of resilience and adaptation. They remind us that life itself is the true monument, that survival is the deeper inheritance. And if by chance we uncover artifacts or ruins, then the boundary between myth and history will dissolve. The question lingers. Are we ready for what the ice may reveal? If the vault opens and the true history of Earth rises into daylight, will we recognize it or deny it, as we have denied so many uncomfortable truths? The answer may come sooner than we expect. As the ice fractures and rivers of meltwater carve new paths, we stand at the threshold. Beyond lies silence deeper than any library, secrets older than any nation. And in that silence, a paradox awaits. The closer we come to uncovering Antarctica's truths, the more the continent itself becomes fragile, endangered, vanishing. Its voice grows louder even as its body fades. And so we approach the final chapter, the frozen silence itself. What does Antarctica say to us, across millions of years, across myths and maps, across ruins and DNA? It speaks not in words, but in stillness. The silence that remains is our last inheritance. Night settles across the southern horizon, a darkness so complete it seems to erase the world. Antarctica becomes not a place but a presence, a continent of silence, its vastness folding sound into nothing. And yet, that silence is not empty. It is layered, like the ice itself, carrying voices from epochs we can scarcely imagine. To stand here, even in thought, is to sense the weight of time pressing down. Beneath 4 kilometers of ice lie records older than humanity. Ice cores pulled from Dome Sea preserve tiny bubbles of ancient air, tracing climate shifts across 800,000 years. Each layer is a page, each bubble a syllable in Earth's long story. They tell of warm periods, of ice ages, of volcanic eruptions that darkened skies, even of cosmic dust from distant stars. In this frozen archive, the Earth itself is the scribe, writing in snow what we forget in stone. This too is the true history of Earth, not myth or rumour alone, but the planet's own testimony. And yet, the myths cling as tightly as the ice. Pyramids glimpsed in mountain shadows, maps that should not exist, legends of hidden kingdoms and luminous beings, stories of Nazi strongholds, UFO encounters, and creatures in the deep. Science explains, denies, or suspends judgment, but the silence absorbs all, facts and fantasies alike, until both seem plausible in the endless white. Perhaps that is Antarctica's gift. It refuses to resolve. It does not reveal enough to silence wonder, nor remain so blank as to extinguish hope. It is both a library and a veil, preserving the past even as it conceals it. The continent reminds us that history is not a straight line, but a folded fabric, some layers visible, others hidden, all pressing against one another in the dark. We began with the idea of Antarctica as a vault. We return to it now, seeing more clearly what it holds. Not only forests fossilized in stone, microbes surviving in alien lakes, or air trapped before humanity was born. Not only rumors of civilizations erased by cataclysm, or visitors who may have walked this frozen land. It holds all of it, the evidence and the speculation, the certainty and the dream. The true history of Earth may not be a single narrative, but the coexistence of all these voices folded beneath the ice. And as the ice melts, the silence will change. Some secrets will surface, others will vanish forever into the rising seas. The vault may open, but what it reveals could be as fragile as the continent itself. We may glimpse ruins, or only rocks. We may find truth, or only more mystery. Either way, the silence will have spoken, and we will be left to decide how to listen. So linger here, at the edge of the world, in the company of silence. Imagine pyramids glowing beneath ice, maps drawn from forgotten memory, and microbes breathing in darkness older than time. Imagine Atlantis frozen instead of drowned. Imagine DNA carrying whispers of ancestors whose cities are now glaciers. And above all, imagine that Antarctica is speaking still, not in words, but in the hush that follows wind, in the stillness that follows storm. Where are you listening from tonight, and at what time? Share your place in the world, and let these mysteries travel farther than ice ever can. And if these stories keep you company in the night, consider subscribing so we may keep opening the vault together. Until then, rest easy. The frozen continent waits, its silence deep, its voice eternal. Sleep well and dream of the ice.